There are deaths that steal away not just a life but a piece of collective memory spanning generations. They were heroes, immortal symbols of America. But they left in such cruel tragedies that no one dared to imagine a great Black Panther fought in silence and fell when the world needed him most. An R&B princess disappeared after a fateful flight, leaving behind many regrets at the age of 22. A comedy icon bringing laughter, then quietly passing away, leaving the whole of America stunned. The faces you loved on screen are now just memories. Here are 20 Black actors lost to shocking accident. You never knew about a journey that will shock, tear up, and haunt you. Why did these stars leave so soon? The first name no one can forget, a star who changed the world's view of superheroes. Chadwick Boseman, the hero of Wakanda, collapsed at the age of 43. Do you remember Black Panther? Chadwick Boseman was an icon for a generation, from Jackie Robinson in 42. James Brown in Get On Up to Thurgood Marshall in Marshall. He portrayed real-life Black legends. And then Boseman had a role that many generations of audiences remember, T'Challa, Black Panther. For the first time in Marvel history, a Black superhero is front and center, celebrated by millions of viewers around the world. For African-American children, he's more than just a character on screen. He's proof that heroes come in our skin. But behind the scenes, Chadwick carried a terrible secret. In 2016, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. For 4 years, Chadwick silently fought stage 3 colon cancer, which then metastasized. He underwent surgery and endured chemotherapy. There were days when he had to be hospitalized right after filming, and at times he lost so much weight that his fans were worried. But he never told anyone, not even his close colleagues. On his last night, he passed away in the arms of his wife and family. No camera lights, no applause, just weak breathing and clenched hands. On August 28, 2020, the world was shocked when the news broke. Chadwick Boseman passed away at his home in Los Angeles, age 43. No one could believe it, because just a few months before, people saw him on screen strong as a Wakanda warrior. America was shocked. Hollywood was silent. African-American children wearing Black Panther masks sobbed on the side of the road. Everywhere, people lit candles, raised their hands to make the Wakanda Forever sign, bidding farewell to a fallen king. Many shed tears because they understood that Chadwick's death had taken more than just talent. It had taken away a symbol of hope and pride for an entire generation. The passing of Chadwick Boseman has left an irreplaceable void in the hearts of millions of viewers. But Hollywood has once been silent like that. When it lost an angelic voice, a female singer was honored by the whole of America as an immortal legend of music. Whitney Houston. Angelic voice passed away in tragedy. Whitney Houston was more than just a singer. She was America's golden voice, taking R&B and pop to the top of the world. With over 200 million records, 6 Grammy Awards, and the immortal song I Will Always Love You from The Bodyguard, Whitney became an irreplaceable legend. But behind the bright lights were years of drugs, alcohol, and a tragic marriage to Bobby Brown. The glory gradually faded, but fans still hoped that one day she could return and regain her immortal diva status. Tragedy struck. On February 11, 2012, Whitney was found unconscious in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, just hours before attending a pre-Grammy party. The autopsy report said she died of drowning, with heart disease and cocaine contributing factors. The news came like a bolt from the blue. A legend, one of the world's greatest voices, gone at the age of 48. The whole of America was shocked. Aretha Franklin called her the darling daughter of American music. Beyoncé was emotional. There is no one else who can touch my heart with her voice like Whitney. On February 18, 2012, Whitney Houston's funeral took place at New Hope Baptist Church, New Jersey, the very place where she first sang in the church choir. The ceremony was broadcast live nationwide, watched by millions of people. And in front of the church, thousands of fans stood in line carrying white flowers to bid farewell to their idol. Many famous names such as Oprah Winfrey, Mariah Carey, Clive Davis, who discovered Whitney, and even politicians such as former President Bill Clinton were present or sent condolences. As her daughter Bobbi Kristina sang through her tears, the world knew they were witnessing the end of a musical era. Whitney Houston's death shook more than just Hollywood. It was a wound to the global music scene, a reminder that sometimes even angels succumb to the weight of everyday tragedy. Nearly 2 decades earlier, the American music and film world was also shocked. when a talented R&B princess suddenly passed away at a very young age, leaving behind many regrets. Aaliyah R&B Princess ends at 22. She was called the Princess of R&B, a youthful, seductive voice that brought R&B into a new era. Her album One in a Million sold over 8 million copies, and Try Again became the first song to reach #1 on Billboard solely through radio airplay. On screen, she found success in Romeo Must Die with Jet Li, and she's poised to shine even brighter with Queen of the Damned. At 22, Aaliyah was at the top, a brilliant career, stunning beauty, a bright future. But then a fateful moment took it all away. On August 25, 2001, after filming the music video for Rock the Boat in the Bahamas, Aaliyah and her crew boarded a small plane to return to Miami. Just minutes after takeoff, the overloaded Cessna 402B with its engine overheating crashed and burst into flames. All 9 people on board died instantly. She was only 22 years old when she died. The news spread like a nightmare. America was shocked. Fans cried in disbelief because they could not believe that the R&B princess had disappeared after just one flight. Missy Elliott, Aaliyah's close sister, tearfully wrote, "I still can't believe it. Aaliyah was like a sister to me. She had a pure heart and talent that the world will forever remember." Beyoncé also burst into tears during an interview. "She was the brightest star of our generation. Too soon, too unfair." Aaliyah's funeral in New York turned into a sea of white flowers. Thousands of fans lined the streets, many bursting into tears, as the coffin covered in white roses was carried out of the church. Aaliyah's death didn't just take a star. It ripped through a generation of 90s stars, leaving behind a haunting reminder that sometimes the best dreams are the most fragile. Even icons who brought laughter to millions of Americans had to leave in pain and regret. Bernie Mac, Kings of Comedy, and his shocking death in 2008. Bernie Mac is more than just a comedian. He is one of the original kings of comedy, a name associated with the laughter of an entire generation of Americans. The Emmy-winning sitcom The Bernie Mac Show brought him into every household, turning him into the national uncle that everyone loves. On the big screen, he appeared in Ocean's 11, Charlie's Angels, Mr. 3000, always bringing his charm and characteristic laughter. But behind his strong demeanor and energetic smile, Bernie Mac had been battling sarcoidosis, a rare inflammatory disease that affected his lungs for years. He was hospitalized several times, but always returned to the stage as if to hide his vulnerability behind a humorous exterior. By the summer of 2008, Bernie Mac's condition had worsened. He developed severe pneumonia, which led to respiratory failure. He was admitted to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. Doctors tried to save him, but in the early morning of August 9, 2008, Bernie Mac's heart stopped beating. He passed away at the age of 50, leaving an irreplaceable void in American comedy. The news left America stunned. Millions of fans around the world mourned Uncle Bernie, the man who once made them laugh every night. Steve Harvey, a close co-star, broke down in tears on television. Bernie was more than a colleague, he was a brother. "We have lost one of the greatest voices in comedy." Samuel L. Jackson choked up and wrote, "He brought laughter to our hearts. He is gone now, but his legacy will live on." Bernie Mac's funeral in Chicago drew thousands of people, from fans to Hollywood stars. The laughter that had once been associated with him gave way to tears of grief. Bernie Mac's death is not just the passing of an artist. It is the painful silence of an entire generation for whom his laughter was a part of their childhood and memories. But the tragedy did not stop there. Just 4 years later, Hollywood was again shaken by the loss of another face, not a comedian, but a gentle giant, an icon of kindness on screen, Michael Clarke Duncan. The gentle giant passed away suddenly in 2012. Michael Clarke Duncan is known to the world for his role as John Coffey in The Green Mile 1999, a giant with a gentle heart bringing many tears to the audience. This role earned him an Oscar and Golden Globe nomination. And since then, Duncan has become a familiar face in Hollywood, in Armageddon, Daredevil, Planet of the Apes. But behind that warm smile, fate was cruel. On July 13, 2012, Michael suffered a massive heart attack at his home in Los Angeles. His girlfriend, TV star Omarosa Manigault, promptly performed CPR and called an ambulance, saving him from death. But Duncan never fully recovered. He spent nearly 2 months in the hospital in critical condition. On the morning of September 3, 2012, the giant's heart stopped beating forever. Michael Clarke Duncan passed away at the age of 54. The news shocked Hollywood. Tom Hanks, his co-star in The Green Mile, choked up and shared losing Michael is losing a pure light. He had the gentlest soul in the biggest body I have ever met. Michael Clarke Duncan's funeral took place at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, the resting place of many legends. Friends, colleagues, and fans came in droves. The coffin was covered with white flowers and gospel music played mournfully. Stars such as Tom Hanks, Jay Leno, Frank Darabont, director of The Green Mile, were all present, their eyes red as they said their goodbyes. People called it the funeral of a gentle giant because everyone knew that not only on screen but in real life, Michael Clarke Duncan was one of the warmest souls Hollywood ever had. His sudden death left the film world without a great talent, but more importantly, a kind person. And to this day, when talking about The Green Mile, audiences still choke up remembering Michael Clarke Duncan, the tall, gentle man who left an everlasting mark in their hearts. Just a few years later, America was shaken by another tragedy. Not a veteran icon, but a familiar face from childhood, someone millions of viewers grew up with. Malcolm Jamal Warner, the nation's son, and his death that made America cry. Malcolm Jamal Warner is America's national son. As Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, he grew up in front of millions of viewers, becoming a childhood icon for a generation. People saw his innocence, and then his maturity, with each season a face so familiar that audiences considered him a family member. After The Cosby Show, Warner continued his career with Here and Now and other television roles, quietly establishing himself as a dedicated artist. He was no flashy superstar, but in the collective memory, Warner will forever be the son America grew up with. But then, when the audience still believed that the national son would accompany them for many more years, tragedy suddenly struck, taking everything away. On July 20, 2025, Malcolm Jamal Warner and his friends were enjoying a short vacation on the beach in Tamarindo, Costa Rica. But in just a few short minutes, that joy turned into tragedy. He was swept away by the waves, struggling desperately before being pulled to shore in an unconscious state. Doctors tried to revive him for 45 minutes, but all were in vain. The news hit like a bolt from the blue. Americans couldn't believe that the son they had watched from the small screen was gone forever. His death was not just the loss of an actor, but also the loss of a part of our collective childhood. Warner's funeral took place in Los Angeles, where he spent his entire career. Thousands of fans brought flowers and photos to NBC Studios, where The Cosby Show was filmed. Former stars like Phylicia Rashad, Tempest Bledsoe, and even newer faces came to pay their respects. On social networks, countless artists and audiences simultaneously wrote, "We have lost a brother, a friend, and a part of our memories. Warner is gone, but the national son lives forever in the hearts of audiences." And from now on, every time Americans turn on The Cosby Show, they are not only watching a sitcom, but also paying tribute to a lost part of their childhood, a part associated with the name Malcolm Jamal Warner. But that tragedy is just one piece in a series of painful losses that Hollywood has witnessed. If Warner is considered the national son of the 80s and 90s, then a few decades ago, American audiences experienced another shock, a sitcom legend. A monument of laughter fell right in the middle of bringing laughter to the whole world. Redd Foxx, sitcom legend, collapses on set. In the history of American television, few comedians have left a deep mark like Redd Foxx. He was the soul of the legendary sitcom Sanford and Son 1972-1977, a series that dominated NBC's primetime. Fox became the sitcom king of the 70s. Fox did more than just make audiences laugh. He was a pioneer in paving the way for black actors on television, breaking down racial barriers in Hollywood. However, fate chose a very cruel ending for Fox. On October 11, 1991 in Los Angeles, Fox was filming his new sitcom The Royal Family, marking his return to the small screen after many years. He kept his familiar humorous style, making the whole crew laugh with every line. But while the cameras were still rolling, Fox suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed to the floor. At first, the crew thought he was getting into character because in Sanford and Son, Fred Sanford often faked a heart attack to make people laugh. But the laughter quickly faded. Fox did not stand up. He was really having a heart attack. The crew panicked. Co-star Della Reese screamed for help, crying and praying. Medical staff rushed to the rescue, performing CPR on the set. but all was in vain. Redd Foxx breathed his last right where he had shined most on the set. He passed away at the age of 68. The funeral was filled with sadness, but also with respect. It was said that Redd Foxx died in the way that was most fitting for him on stage, where he spent his entire life bringing laughter to humanity. Just a few years later, Hollywood lost another icon who, along with Fox, helped create the golden age of black television in the 1970s. Sherman Hemsley, Mr. Jefferson, and the quiet death of a legend. Sherman Hemsley was the soul of The Jeffersons, 1975-1985, a series that lasted for 11 seasons, becoming one of the most successful sitcoms in American television history. His character entered popular culture, becoming an unlikable but lovable icon that the whole of America remembered. However, in contrast to the limelight, Hemsley chose to live an extremely private life. He almost disappeared from the media after leaving The Jeffersons, living quietly in a small house in El Paso, Texas. And then on July 24, 2012, Sherman Hemsley was found dead in his sleep at the age of 74. The autopsy report confirmed the cause was lung cancer, a disease he had never disclosed to the public. What made the audience even more heartbroken was that Hemsley's funeral was not noisy without the whole Hollywood send-off like his contemporaries. He passed away quietly, leaving endless regret in the hearts of the audience, those who once considered him an immortal icon of the small screen. As the 70s and 80s generation gradually closes a glorious journey, tragedy strikes younger talents. It is no longer the passing away after old age, but the deaths that are too early and too unexpected, leaving the audience in shock. Lee Thompson Young, Jet Jackson, and the shock that shook the entire Disney world. Lee Thompson Young was not just an actor, he was once a childhood icon of a generation. As Jet Jackson in the famous Jet Jackson, he transformed into a superhero who was both familiar and admirable. Lee became Disney's darling and idol whose posters hung in the bedrooms of millions of American teenagers in the late 1990s. Experts believed that he would go far, becoming one of the few black actors who could break out of the children's sitcom framework to reach the big screen. But one decision ended it all. On the morning of August 19, 2013, the sky of Hollywood seemed to collapse when the news spread. Lee Thompson Young was found dead in his apartment in North Hollywood. He chose to quietly close the age of 29, the age that should have been the most brilliant of his career. No message, no warning. On the set of Rizzoli and Isles, Lee was professional in every scene. During photo shoots, he still beamed with his familiar smile. It was this unbelievable normality that made his death such a shocking, thunderous shock. A star who had brought light to millions of childhood viewers was now remembered as a symbol of immense loneliness hidden behind a smile. Lee Thompson Young's funeral was held in a somber, emotional atmosphere. Disney Channel stars who had written the golden age of the children's network with him were quietly present. On social media, millions of fans lit virtual candles, shared photos of Jet Jackson, and wrote tributes. The name Lee Thompson Young became a global trend. People wept for a life gone too soon, but it was even more heartbreaking to think that a black talent who was once expected to go far no longer had the chance to shine. Another teen star tragedy has shocked the world. Merlin Santana, young talent, taken away by an unjust bullet. If Lee Thompson Young is the icon of Disney Channel, Merlin Santana is associated with one of the most popular sitcoms of the 1990s, The Steve Harvey Show. As Romeo, the humorous and flirtatious guy, Santana quickly became the most beloved character on the show. Possessing a handsome appearance, a bright smile, and a charming acting style, he is considered a crush of teenage female audiences, and at the same time a promising face in Hollywood. But that halo suddenly disappeared on the night of November 9, 2002. While sitting in his car in the Crenshaw area of Los Angeles, Merlin, Santana was suddenly shot multiple times from behind by an ambusher. He died on the spot. At only 26 years old, his budding career was brutally ended. The news shocked the Hollywood community. Fans were outraged that a young talent had been taken away so senselessly. Santana's death exposed a bitter truth. The lights of Hollywood were not enough to shield a young star from the street violence that still lurks every day. Choking cry in sitcom family, Merlin Santana's funeral was filled with tears. His colleagues from The Steve Harvey Show came to say goodbye, hugging each other and crying beside the coffin of their young friend who had just been laughing and talking on set. Steve Harvey, Santana's teacher and senior, choked up and said, Merlin left too soon when he had a whole future ahead of him. This is an irreplaceable loss. Fans everywhere sent flowers, wrote letters of condolence, mourning a career that had just begun but ended in a tragic gunshot. Santana became a symbol of injustice, a warning that tragedy can happen even when you are in the spotlight. The death of Merlin Santana shocked Hollywood, but the youthful tragedy did not end there. Just 3 years later, another teen star fell. This time not to violence, but to the cruel wheels of fate on a California highway. Lamont Bentley, Moesha's Hakeem, and the cry of a teenager. Audiences in the 1990s certainly cannot forget the sitcom Moesha, the film that made the name of the singer Brandy. In it, Lamont Bentley played Hakeem Campbell, the gentle, lovable boyfriend who was always by Moesha's side. Bentley became the dream boy of many teenage girls, a face associated with the youthful memories of an entire generation. But that light went out too soon. On the night of January 19, 2005, Lamont Bentley was driving on Interstate 118 in California after attending a party. In a fateful moment, his car lost control, veered off the road, crashed heavily, and flipped several times before coming to a stop. Witnesses said the collision was so violent that no one believed a life could be saved. When the police arrived at the scene, Bentley was gone. At just 31 years old, Moesha's Hakeem, the sweet symbol of school life, was gone forever. The news spread and all the newspapers and TV stations simultaneously carried the headline, "Moesha Star Tragic Death." Fans were stunned, feeling as if a part of their youth had been ripped from their hearts. Lamont Bentley's funeral was held shortly after the fateful accident on January 19, 2005, in an atmosphere of mourning. Friends, colleagues, and family could not believe that the 31-year-old man who had brought laughter to millions of viewers had passed away so suddenly. Brandy Norwood, the star of Moesha and Bentley's closest co-star, sobbed beside the casket. With Hakeem gone, Moesha became a distant memory, and with it the innocent dreams of American teenagers ended in tears. But the tragedy for the cast of the sitcom Moesha did not stop there. Just a few years later, another name fell: Yvette Wilson. The pain of Moesha's curse. In Moesha, besides Brandy or Lamont Bentley, the audience still remembers the witty face of Yvette Wilson as Andell Wilkerson, the coffee shop owner who is always devoted to the children. Not stopping at Moesha, Wilson continued to participate in The Parkers, a popular series associated with black culture in the late 1990s, helping her become one of the most beloved female comedians. However, Wilson's life soon fell into darkness. She was faced with the terrible disease of cervical cancer. Despite fighting it strongly for many years, on June 14, 2012, she breathed her last at the age of 48. What shocked the public even more was that this tragedy followed a series of painful losses for the Moesha cast. Merlin Santana was shot dead in 2002. Lamont Bentley died in a car accident in 2005, and now Wilson has succumbed to illness. People shuddered and called it the Moesha curse, a dark shadow haunting the sitcom that was the childhood of an entire generation. Wilson's funeral was not a lavish affair, but it was a tearful affair. Cast members from Moesha and The Parkers came to say goodbye, reminiscing about a colleague who always made people laugh, even when he was suffering from pain. Fans were shocked and saddened. On forums, many shared the feeling that their childhoods were gradually collapsing as each of Moesha's stars passed away. For them, Wilson was not just a comedian, but a part of their teenage memories, a part that has now been forever swallowed by the darkness of the Moesha curse. If the death of Yvette Wilson made the audience believe that the Moesha curse had not stopped yet, the tragedy was quickly extended by another face of black culture in the late 90s, 2000s. Natalie Desselle Reid, queen of humor of black culture in the 90s, 2000s. Natalie Desselle Reid was not a Hollywood A-lister, but she was a familiar face to black audiences throughout the 1990s, 2000s. In 1997, Natalie burst onto the scene as Mickey in the comedy Baps, co-starring Halle Berry. Baps quickly became a black cultural phenomenon. Although she was not a superstar, she was affectionately known by her fans as the queen of everyday comedy. However, while laughter still echoes on the screen in real life, a quiet tragedy is happening. In 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic swept the world, Natalie silently battled stomach cancer. The disease progressed rapidly, and just a few months later, on December 7, 2020, she breathed her last at the age of 53. The news stunned Hollywood and the black community. Halle Berry, her co-star in BAPS, tearfully wrote, "Natalie was a light, a laugh, and a friend I will miss forever. The world has lost a true star." Natalie's passing evokes sad memories of other black stars like Yvette Wilson, who shared the same fate of being taken by cancer, casting a dark shadow over a generation of artists who once brought laughter to audiences. Natalie's funeral was held quietly amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Not crowded, not noisy, but full of love. Family and close friends were present to say goodbye, while millions of viewers could only remember from afar. A series of memorial campaigns have sprung up on social media. Natalie's comedy clips, especially those from BAPS and Eve, have been reshared as a way to keep her laughter alive. Fans have written, "Natalie is gone, but her laughter will live on." Tragedy does not discriminate whether it is a giant or a child star with a small stature. And the next shock comes from a boy of American television, Gary Coleman, the legendary boy tragic death at 42. In the 1980s, America was fascinated by the sitcom Diff'rent Strokes. Gary Coleman, with his chubby face and witty line "Whatcha Talkin' About Willis," became a childhood icon. He was not only a TV star, but also a part of the memories of millions of viewers. But the glory of his childhood could not save him from tragedy. Coleman suffered from a congenital kidney disease which limited his height to 1m42. His career declined, his money ran out. He fell into lawsuits, debt, and was forgotten by Hollywood. A glorious time ended in loneliness. On May 26, 2010, fate struck the final blow. Gary Coleman fell in the bathroom of his home in Utah, suffering a severe traumatic brain injury. Despite being rushed to the emergency room, he fell into a deep coma. Just 2 days later, on May 28, 2010, the ventilator was removed. Gary Coleman died at the age of 42, leaving America in shock. Fans everywhere called it the sad death of childhood. Because for a whole generation, Gary Coleman was not just an actor, he was a symbol of carefree years, now closed by such a cruel tragedy. But on the other side, there are stars who do not fall silently, but end their journey with a lifetime of glory. Cicely Tyson, a timeless monument, closing a brilliant era. Cicely Tyson is the voice, the soul, the timeless symbol of black women. Over her 6-decade career, she has chosen roles not for fame, but to affirm the dignity and humanity of an entire community. From Sounder to Miss Jane Pittman, all the way to How to Get Away with Murder at nearly 90 years old, Cicely Tyson has made each role a statement. Barack Obama once awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom and called her one of the greatest actresses of all time. But what must come, will come. On January 28, 2021, just 2 days after the release of her memoir, Just As I Am, Cicely Tyson took her last breath at the age of 96. The news of her death did not come as a sudden shock, but as a moment when time stopped. All of Hollywood fell silent, bowing its head before the passing of a queen. The funeral took place in New York, solemn and tearful. The coffin was covered with white flowers, moving slowly to the sound of hymns. Oprah Winfrey Tyler, Perry Bill and Hillary Clinton, and a host of other big stars were present to say goodbye. Oprah sobbed as she said, "She opened doors that my generation thought would never open." Cicely didn't just make movies, she changed history. Outside the church, hundreds of fans lined up holding flowers and pictures of her. Many cried as if they had just lost a loved one. As the coffin left New York, fell silent. No honking, no noise, just a solemn silence reserved for a monument. The death of Cicely Tyson is not just the passing of an actress. It is the end of an era in which art is no longer entertainment, but a weapon against prejudice, and Cicely Tyson is its proudest warrior. However, the history of black sitcoms is not only marked by tragedy and illness. There are still other faces, although not A-list superstars, who have become familiar in the living rooms of millions of American families. They are names that every time they appear make the audience feel close, like meeting an old friend. Tommy Ford. Tommy had no job, and his quiet departure at the age of 52. In the sitcom Martin, one of the most popular series of the 90s, the character Tommy, played by Thomas McCall Ford, became the national friend, thanks to his gentle, intelligent personality, always being the support of the group of mischievous friends. The line, "Tommy ain't got no job," became a joke that spread throughout popular culture, immortalizing Tommy Ford in the hearts of sitcom fans. No one expected tragedy to come. On October 12, 2016, fans were shocked by the bad news. Tommy Ford passed away at the age of 52, due to an abdominal aneurysm. The death came too quickly and too unexpectedly. Just a few days before, he was still sharing pictures of his daily life on social media. Friends and colleagues were shocked that a healthy, energetic man was knocked down in just a moment by a medical complication. Ford's funeral was attended by the cast of the sitcom Martin, along with a host of 90s comedians. On Twitter, the hashtag #TommyFord quickly became a global trend. Fans reposted classic comedy clips, especially the "Tommy ain't got no job" moment, as a way to send him off. Tommy Ford didn't need a flashy leading role, just a supporting role. He became an indelible memory in the sitcom fan community. If Tommy Ford's death showed the fragility of health, Anthony Johnson's tragedy exposed another dark side of the entertainment industry. His unstable life illness and quiet departure left a shock to the street comedy community. Anthony Johnson, Friday's Ezal and Death in Poverty. Anthony A.J. Johnson is best known for his role as Ezal in Friday 1995. Despite his supporting role, he made audiences laugh with his slyness, quick wit, and unmistakable street comedy. Johnson also appeared in House Party and Menace to Society, becoming a familiar face to audiences of color, especially in the hip-hop community. On September 6, 2021, Anthony Johnson was found unconscious in a store in Los Angeles. He was rushed to the hospital but died. Medical reports later said the cause of death was related to heart failure and alcohol use. The news was shocking, as Johnson had struggled with illness and financial hardship. His family even had to raise money on GoFundMe to cover funeral expenses. Johnson's funeral was a community affair. Hip-hop artists and fellow Friday artists came to pay their respects, saying A.J. Johnson was the soul of street comedy. Fans on social media reposted the scene of Ezal falling over and pretending to be injured, one of the most iconic comedy moments. The sadness was not just about losing an actor, but also about the harsh reality that many black comedy stars, despite their lifetimes of dedication, still have to leave in hardship. If Johnson was an icon of everyday humor, Moses Gunn left a legacy of majesty from Broadway to cinema. But his death also left the artistic community mourning the loss of a pillar of the stage. Moses Gunn. The majestic artist passed away due to a fateful asthma attack. Moses Gunn, born in 1929, rose to prominence in the blaxploitation genre with his role as Bumpy Jonas in Shaft 1971. He also made his mark in the 1977 series Roots, a classic portrayal of slavery. With his booming voice and calm demeanor, Gunn was revered on both Broadway and screen. On December 16, 1993, Moses Gunn died at his home in Guilford, Connecticut, of complications from asthma. He had battled the disease for many years, but in the end, he could not escape. His death shocked the American theater world. A majestic male voice that once filled entire auditoriums was now forever silent. If Moses Gunn is a serious icon, Esther Rolle is the embodiment of sitcom motherhood, a true mother on screen. Esther Rolle, the sitcom mother, and her tragic passing. Esther Rolle is beloved for her role as Florida Evans in Good Times 1974-1979. The image of a strong, resilient black mother who always kept her family strong in the face of hardship made Rolle the national mother of black sitcoms in the 70s. She was also a strong voice fighting against stereotypical images, demanding that Hollywood portray people of color more realistically. On November 17, 1998, Rolle died of complications from diabetes at the age of 78. She passed away in a California hospital, leaving a huge void in the black community. For many, Rolle's death was like losing a second mother, the mother who was always present in the living room on the television screen. Her funeral was attended by the cast of Good Times and countless black artists. Rolle is remembered not only as an actress, but as a pioneer who helped future generations of black actresses gain a foothold. She was buried in Florida, leaving behind an irreplaceable legacy. After Esther Rolle, another name that also left a mark in the depth of the main character was Paul Winfield. But his departure was quieter, making him less mentioned by young audiences. Paul Winfield, great talent, passed away due to heart attack. Paul Winfield was nominated for an Oscar for his role as the father in Sounder, 1972. This role made him one of the few black actors of that time to be recognized by Hollywood critics. He also participated in Roots, the Next Generation's 1979, and a series of television productions, leaving a legacy of humane acting. On March 7, 2004, Paul Winfield died of a heart attack in Los Angeles at the age of 64. His death came unexpectedly, causing regret in the art world. It was not as noisy as young stars who died early, but for the art community, it was an irreplaceable loss. Winfield's funeral was simple, but the eulogies affirmed that he was a great talent of American cinema. Critics called him a man who brought humanity to every frame, a rare artist who could make viewers both cry and think after each role. Which actor do you remember most on this list? Who is your idol and favorite? Comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to not miss the hottest videos.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore, stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.